So, why didn't Jesus' disciple fast? Today we're going to get the answer by analyzing Mark 2:19. Let's go. Mark 2:19 reads, Kai epen autois hois Jesus, me dunatai hoi huioi tu numphonos, en ho honumfius metauton estin nestewein, hoson chronon ecusin ton numphion metauton, udunantai nestewein. Mark 2:19 is kind of a long verse, so let's try to break it down. It starts as usual with this kai, which is the end that is used by Mark pretty much always to start the different verses. Conjunction and you have the subject here, ho Jesus, which we find it so many times, is Jesus, with a definite article in front that we don't use in English. And then you have the verb, apen, verb one, and then you have this personal pronoun in the third person plural masculine, which indicates the people to whom Jesus was speaking. And then from this moment on, the whole thing is Jesus' speech, what Jesus is saying, the very words of Jesus. And first, you have these two lines here, which are a question, and you see this semicolon that, as we've seen many times in Greek, represents a question mark. And then you have a final statement, which is right here in the last line. So let's analyze first the question. So this me is actually a negative particle. Okay. So this me here is a negative particle that generally means not. However, it can be used in interrogative sentences, in questions, to indicate a rhetorical question where a negative answer is expected. This is exactly the case. So we can forget to translate it. We shouldn't actually translate it because otherwise in English we give the wrong meaning. It's just there to indicate that this is a rhetorical question, and the answer that people should understand is implied, and it's a no. Okay, it's like the Latin num. Okay, all right, let's move on to the verb. So dunantai, this is the verb of the question. So let's put verb number 2, and then there is the subject of the question, which is hoi huioi. So this is the subject of the question. And there is this genitive here, which indicates what kind of huioi they are. Okay, so it specifies what kind of huioi they are. And the verb dunantai, actually it's connected with this infinitive here. Let's call it verb number 3, but they're actually part of the same verbal construct, because it's a verb that hold an infinitive. Nestewein, you see this ending, so this is an infinitive. And so you have the subject, you have the compound construct for the verb, and then you have this other clause which is introduced by this en ho, which we're gonna see will translate sort of while, sort of temporal type of clause, where the subject of the clause is here, ho nymphius, and this is the verb of the clause. So let's call it verb number 4. Okay. And then you have this prepositional phrase, met auton, where the preposition here is meta, where the alpha got deleted because it clashes with the alpha of the next word. So instead of saying meta auton, one of the two alpha just drops. Okay, but it's a prepositional phrase where meta wants the genitive. You see here, auton is a genitive plural. Okay, and indicates companionship with. Okay, with, in this particular case. And then you have the last declarative sentence that basically responds to the question, right? we said, that this may was implying that the answer to the question was negative, and in fact, the answer is here, and you see the negative particle "u," okay, which is not or don't. Okay, so this is the answer. Can they? No, they cannot. Okay, so and you see how the verbs are completely um, parallel and kind of copy and paste it, right? Me dunantai, dunantai. Okay, can they? No, they cannot. Okay, me dunantai nestewen. No, dunantai nestewen. All right, so that's the answer. And then you have this other clause, which is introduced by this hoson chronon, which is very similar to this en ho. It's pretty much the same thing. It means while or for the whole time, when, as long as, okay, as long as, okay, literally means for the whole time that, okay. In the accusative case, because it indicates, a temporal concept, and the subject is understood to be this hoi huyoi, the same one. Okay, so it's not repeated, and then you have the verb ekusin, so which is verb number, in this case, number 5, and then you have the object ton nun fien is the object, the direct object, and then again this expression metoton, which is exactly the same as before. All right, so kind of long, but we explain all the grammar behind, so we should be ready to translate. Kai and subject, or Jesus, Jesus, apen. Now, this is an irregular verb that we saw it many times. It's in the aorist tense, third person singular, of the verb to say. So in this particular case, it means he said, right? And Jesus said, autois, personal pronoun, third person plural, to them. And Jesus said to them. Now, what is the question? Again, we said me, we can just ignore because it's rhetorical in this case. And the subject is right here, ho huyoi. Now, huyos, huyos, it's an interesting term because it's actually a very important term. It means son. Jesus is huyos theou, is the son of God, right? This huyoi is in the nominative case, masculine plural, okay? And so it means the sons, okay? Literally are the sons. The sons of what? Two is the definite article in the genitive case, so of the sons of what? The nymphonos. Now, nymphonos is the bridal chamber, is the bridal chamber, okay? Comes from nymphe, which means bride. So nymphos is the bridal chamber, is basically the room where the the wedding feast was celebrated, and then the marriage was consummated. And and so this expression, it's kind of it may sound a little weird to us, the sons of the bridal chamber. What is Jesus talking about here? To understand that, we need to go back 2,000 years ago in the Jewish ceremonial festivals for weddings, where there were the bride and the bridegroom, and also there were all the all the friends of the groom, the friends of the bride, and the friends of the bridegroom were even called the children of the bridal chamber. They were the ones that were in charge of preparing the bridal chamber, and in charge of preparing the feast and the wedding festival themselves. So this is what Jesus is talking about. So sometimes it's translated as the guests of the bridegroom, but it's not really the guests anymore. It's more, the ones closest to the bridegroom that would prepare the bridal chamber. So we could just leave it like that and call it the children of the bridal chamber, um, or the friends of the bride, of the bridegroom. I mean, we understand the meaning. Now, can these guys do what? Well, the verb is nestewen. We saw it in the past videos that this verb nestewen means too fast. Okay, too fast. And so what Jesus is asking is, can the the friends of the bridegroom or the children of the bridal chamber fast and ho? So and is a preposition, means in, and ho is it, technically is a personal pronoun in the dative case, neuter, singular, uh, which we could translate in the time when, in that, literally means in that, right? And so we could translate while, okay, in the time when. So while ho numphius. You see the relationship between nymphonos and numphius. They're not exactly the same term. So nymphonos represents a bridal chamber, while numphius is the bridegroom. Okay, is the bridegroom, because nymphe is the bride, nymphius is the bridegroom. So while the bridegroom, so the husband to be, the bridegroom, esteem, this is the verb to be in the indicative present third person singular. So while the bridegroom is, and we already said that metauton is a prepositional phrase where the preposition meta means with, and auton is a personal pronoun like this autois. However, this auto is it's in the dative plural case. This auton now is in the genitive plural case, just because it's you have a meta before the one's a genitive, but it just means with them. Okay, so the question simply is, can the children of the bridal chamber fast while the bridegroom is with them? And of course the answer is no. Udunantai nestewen. No, they cannot fast hoson chronon. So chronon means time, right? From which the English word chronology and all these things related to time. Hoson is a pronoun that indicates for all, right? For all the time. Again, so it's a variation of no. Okay, indicates a continuation in time for all the time that they ekusin. This is the verb echo, which means to have in the third person plural. So as long as they have, ton numphion is the same numphius here, but now it's in the accusative case. You see this nu that indicates that this is a direct object. As long as they have the bridegroom, metauton, exactly the same expression, with them. All right. So if we put everything together, we can translate like this. And Jesus said to them, can the children of the bridal chamber fast while the bridegroom is with them? No, they cannot fast as long as they have the bridegroom with them. Well, this is all good, but still it doesn't answer the question, why could they not fast? Well, to understand that, we need to really understand how the Jewish wedding ceremonial worked 2,000 years ago. So the key concept to understand here is that the wedding ceremony in the Jewish society of 2000 years ago was something spectacularly big. It was the highlight of the life, of the entire life of the bride and the bridegroom. That day, the Jews believed that the moment they would get together and get married, that day, all their sins were being forgiven, and they were treating really like a king and a queen. And the whole celebration was around the bride and the bridegroom, and the whole celebration was a celebration that you would put together for a king, a real king and a real queen. It was a great deal, and it was a time of absolute utmost happiness, so much so that if you look at the companions, the friends of the bridegroom, their business was to conduct the bride to the home of her husband, and they spend 7 days in festivity and rejoicing, like a whole week of celebration. Okay, and they were so entirely devoted to feasting and celebrating and happiness that the companions of the bridegroom were absolved even from prayer and worship. They didn't have to go to the synagogue that week. Okay. And in the Talmud, the sacred book of the Jews, kind of extra biblical sacred books that the Jews consider, some of the Orthodox Jews consider inspired. In the Talmud, we read that the companions of the bridegroom were spared from all, the normal duties, even worshiping. Okay, even doing anything related, everything needed to be concentrated on and focused on the bride, and especially the bridegroom, because they were the companions of the bridegroom, and their only business, only job that they had was to make the bridegroom as happy as possible and keep joy and happiness uh, everywhere in the whole family and all the guests. Okay, now with that thing in mind, with this concept in mind, now we can understand what Jesus meant, right? Jesus is the bridegroom, right? And the apostles that were following him were like the companions of the bridegroom. They had that duty, okay, of being joyful. Why? Because they had their bridegroom there with him. Okay, they were rejoicing in the bridegroom, and they were also rejoicing themselves. Okay, they were making the bridegroom happy, and also that the bridegroom would make them happy. This is the type of relationship that God wants to have. Jesus wants to have with us. It's like the same relationship with the bridegroom and the bride and the guests. It's a joy, right? It's a joy. So that's why it was. Jesus says it's impossible, right? I'm here. I'm the bridegroom. They're my companion, right? The children of the bridal chamber, and their job is to be happy. It's impossible for them to fast. It would be against against the law. It would be a total contradiction. Okay, when Jesus is here, right? We cannot be sad, right? There's no moment of sadness when Jesus is with us.